The defibrillator paddles weren't working. Amelia Blackwood, the woman worth billions who'd never spared him a second glance, was dying on the polished marble floor of her own corporate headquarters. And somehow, Miguel Reyes, single father, night janitor, and the most invisible man in the building, was the only one who knew what to do. "She's not breathing," someone screamed. Miguel pushed through the crowd of expensive suits, dropped to his knees, and did what no one expected. He pressed his lips to hers and breathed life back into the woman who could buy and sell his existence 1,000 times over. He never imagined that single act would change everything. Hey everyone! If you're already hooked on Miguel and Amelia's story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that will take you on an unforgettable journey. Your support means everything, and I promise this tale of unexpected connection will be worth every minute. Miguel Reyes had perfected the art of invisibility. At 42, with weathered hands and permanent shadows under his eyes, he moved through the gleaming halls of Blackwood Industries each night like a ghost. The executives who worked there during the day wouldn't recognize him if they passed him on the street, despite his 3 years of emptying their trash and polishing their nameplates that he preferred it that way. Invisibility meant safety, and safety was what his daughter Lucia needed most. "Poppy, can we have pancakes tomorrow?" Lucia had asked that morning, her 10-year-old face bright with hope despite the early hour. She sat at their small kitchen table in their one-bedroom apartment, already dressed in her school uniform while Miguel prepared for sleep after his night shift. "Of course, mi corazón. Heart-shaped ones with strawberries," he promised, kissing the top of her head. Her smile was worth the sleep he'd lose to make it happen. Miguel had raised Lucia alone since she was 4, after pneumonia took his wife Maria with a swiftness that still haunted his dreams. The medical bills had destroyed their modest savings, forcing him to take whatever work he could find. The night janitor position paid just enough to keep them afloat and allowed him to be there when Lucia left for school and when she returned. What it didn't provide was health insurance good enough for Lucia's asthma medication. The inhaler prescriptions drained what little extra they might have had each month. That night, as Miguel pushed his cleaning cart through the 40th floor executive suite of Blackwood Industries, he thought about the field trip permission slip in his pocket. $50 for the Science Museum. He'd have to skip lunch for the next 2 weeks to make it work. He was emptying the trash in the conference room when he heard the commotion. Voices raised in panic, the sound of something, or someone, heavy hitting the floor. Miguel hesitated. Getting involved in the affairs of the daytime people never ended well for the night people. But the shouting grew more frantic. "Call an ambulance. She's not responding. Does anyone know CPR?" He followed the sounds to the main reception area, where a crowd had gathered around someone on the floor. Through gaps between expensive suits and designer dresses, he caught glimpses of a woman in a crimson dress, her dark hair fanned out against the white marble. "The ambulance is 15 minutes out," someone said, panic edging their voice. Miguel recognized the woman immediately, though he'd only ever seen her in passing or in the framed magazine covers that lined the hallways. Amelia Blackwood, 38, self-made tech billionaire and CEO of Blackwood Industries. The woman whose name was on his paychecks. And she wasn't breathing. "I know CPR," he said, his voice barely audible over the chaos. No one moved. "I know CPR," he repeated louder, stepping forward. The crowd parted reluctantly, disbelief evident on their faces as the janitor in his gray uniform knelt beside their fallen leader. Miguel had learned CPR years ago, when Lucia was born. He'd renewed his certification after Maria died, terrified of being unable to help if his daughter had an asthma attack. His hands moved with practiced precision as he checked for a pulse, finding only the faintest flutter. Someone had brought a defibrillator, but after 2 attempts, Amelia's heart wasn't responding properly. Her lips were turning blue. Miguel tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and sealed his mouth over hers, breathing life into her lungs. Chest compressions. Another breath. The expensive perfume she wore mixed with the faint taste of champagne on her lips. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Repeat. Come on, he whispered in Spanish. Your story isn't over yet. On the 4th cycle, Amelia gasped and coughed, her eyes flying open in confusion. They locked onto Miguel's face, inches from her own, and for a moment, there was something like recognition in her gaze. Then the paramedics arrived, and Miguel faded back into invisibility as they loaded the billionaire onto a stretcher. No one thanked him. No one even seemed to notice as he returned to his cleaning cart and continued his rounds. Just another night at Blackwood Industries. 3 days later, Miguel was scrubbing a stubborn coffee stain from the carpet in a corner office when the elevator dinged. No one ever came to the executive floor this late, it was nearly midnight. He looked up to see Amelia Blackwood herself stepping out of the elevator. Gone was the crimson dress, replaced by a simple black pantsuit. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, but nothing could diminish the commanding presence she carried. Miguel quickly stood, keeping his eyes down as she approached. Had he done something wrong? Was he about to be fired for touching the untouchable CEO? Mr. Reyes, she said, stopping a few feet away. He blinked in surprise. She knew his name. Ms. Blackwood, he replied cautiously. I'm sorry if I disturbed you the other night. You saved my life, she interrupted. Her voice was lower than he expected, with a slight rasp that hadn't been there in the interviews he'd overheard on the lobby televisions. The doctor said I had a severe allergic reaction. If you hadn't performed CPR when you did, would have died before the ambulance arrived. Miguel shifted uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. But they didn't. You did. She studied him with an intensity that made him want to disappear into the carpet he'd been cleaning. Why are you working as a janitor, Mr. Reyes? Your personnel file says you have a master's degree in engineering from the University of Mexico City. The question caught him off guard. How much did she know about him? Life happens, he said simply. My wife died. My daughter needed stability. Night work pays better, and the schedule lets me be there for her. Something flickered across Amelia's face, recognition, perhaps, or understanding. I'd like to thank you properly, she said. Would you join me for coffee? There's an all-night diner across the street. Miguel glanced at his watch. He still had 4 hours left on his shift. I can clear it with your supervisor, she added, reading his hesitation. 20 minutes later, Miguel found himself sitting across from one of the richest women in the world in a vinyl booth at Joe's Diner, a greasy spoon that had somehow survived the neighborhood's gentrification. He cradled a mug of black coffee while Amelia sipped tea. I never come in here, she admitted, looking around at the faded photographs on the walls. I can see it from my office window, but billionaires don't eat at diners, Miguel finished with a small smile. To his surprise, she laughed. Exactly. Though this one apparently does now. She studied him over the rim of her cup. Tell me about your daughter. Lucia? She's 10. Smart as a whip. Wants to be an astronaut or a veterinarian, depending on the day. Pride warmed his voice. She has her mother's eyes and her determination. And her health problems? I saw the insurance claims in your file. Miguel stiffened. You looked at my medical records? I looked at everything after I found out who saved me, Amelia said unapologetically. Lucia has severe asthma, and your insurance barely covers the basics. We manage, he said stiffly. The way you managed when she was hospitalized last winter? By working double shifts for a month straight? Miguel set down his mug carefully. With all due respect, Ms. Blackwood, my daughter and I are not a charity case. I never suggested you were. She leaned forward. I have a proposition for you, Mr. Reyes. A job offer. I already have a job. As my personal assistant. Miguel laughed, then realized she was serious. I don't know anything about being an assistant to someone like you. You have an engineering degree, speak 3 languages according to your file, and clearly think well under pressure. She shrugged. The rest can be learned. The starting salary is $95,000, with full benefits, including comprehensive health insurance. The amount made Miguel's head spin. It was more than triple what he currently made. Why would you offer me this? He asked suspiciously. Amelia's expression softened slightly. Because I recognize talent and loyalty when I see it. And because I know what it's like to do whatever it takes to protect someone you love. There was a story there, Miguel sensed, but she didn't elaborate. Think about it, she said, sliding a business card across the table. Call that number when you decide. It's my private line. Miguel didn't call. For 3 days, he turned the card over in his hands during quiet moments, reading the embossed phone number until he'd memorized it. But he didn't call. On the 4th day, he arrived at Lucia's school to find her in the nurse's office, wheezing badly, her rescue inhaler empty. She needs to see her doctor, the nurse said. This is the 3rd attack this month. At the clinic, the doctor was blunt. She needs stronger medication and possibly a specialist. Your current insurance. I understand, Miguel said, the business card burning a hole in his pocket. That night, after Lucia was finally sleeping peacefully, he made the call. I was beginning to think you wouldn't call, Amelia answered on the first ring. I'll take the job, Miguel said without preamble. But I have conditions. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. Most people don't give conditions to a billionaire offering them a job. I'm not most people. Clearly. What are your conditions, Mr. Reyes? Day shifts only. I need to be home when Lucia gets back from school. And I need to start with proper training. I won't embarrass you or myself by pretending to know how to do this job. Done, Amelia said without hesitation. Anything else? Miguel took a deep breath. I want to know why. The real reason. Not some line about recognizing talent. The silence stretched so long that Miguel thought she might have hung up. My father was a janitor, she finally said, her voice quieter than he'd heard it before. He worked nights at a hospital for 20 years. He died of a heart attack on the job when I was 16. No one performed CPR. No one even found him for an hour. She paused. When I saw you push through that crowd to help me, I saw someone with the same quiet dignity he had. The same invisible strength. Miguel closed his eyes, understanding washing over him. I'll see you Monday morning, Ms. Blackwood. Amelia, she corrected. If you're going to be my right hand, you should use my name. The transition from night janitor to executive assistant was like stepping into another dimension. Miguel traded his gray uniform for suits that cost more than his monthly rent, selected by a personal shopper Amelia sent to his apartment. His cleaning cart was replaced by a state-of-the-art tablet that controlled Amelia's digital life. His invisibility vanished overnight. Who's the new guy with Blackwood? He overheard executives whisper as he walked beside Amelia into meetings. Some diversity hire, others muttered when they thought he couldn't hear. Amelia seemed oblivious to the whispers, or perhaps she simply didn't care. She was a demanding boss, expecting Miguel to learn at lightning speed, but she was never cruel. When he made mistakes, scheduling overlapping meetings or ordering the wrong lunch, she corrected him patiently. I didn't hire you because you already knew how to do this job, she reminded him after a particularly stressful day. I hired you because you have the capacity to learn it. For his part, Miguel discovered that Amelia Blackwood was not the cold, calculating businesswoman portrayed in the media. She worked harder than anyone in the building, often staying until midnight, fueled by green tea and sheer determination. She remembered the names of janitors and security guards. She kept a drawer full of asthma inhalers in her desk after learning about Lucia's condition. And she was lonely. Miguel realized this one night when he returned to her office after everyone else had gone home, finding her staring out the window at the city lights, a half-empty glass of whiskey in her hand. "My father would have liked you," she said without turning around. "He always said you can judge people by how they treat those who can do nothing for them. Is that why you watch the cleaning staff when you think no one's looking?" Miguel asked, setting down the files he'd brought. She turned, surprised. "You noticed that?" "I notice everything about you," he said, then immediately regretted the words. They sounded too personal, too intimate for their professional relationship. But Amelia just smiled, a rare genuine smile that transformed her face. "That's why you're good at this job, Miguel. You see people." 2 months into his new position, Miguel brought Lucia to the office on a day when school was closed. Amelia, who had been tense all morning before an important board meeting, immediately softened when the girl bounded into the office. "You must be the famous Lucia," she said, crouching down to the child's level despite her expensive suit. "Your dad talks about you all the time." "He talks about you too," Lucia said with the unfiltered honesty of childhood. "He says you're the smartest person he's ever met, but you don't know how to use the coffee machine." Miguel felt his face heat up, but Amelia threw her head back and laughed, a real laugh that he'd rarely heard. "He's absolutely right," she admitted. "Would you like to see something cool? I have a virtual reality lab downstairs where we're designing a program that lets you walk on Mars." Lucia's eyes widened. "Real Mars? As real as we can make it." Miguel watched as his daughter took Amelia's outstretched hand without hesitation, chattering excitedly about the solar system. Something shifted in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Later, after Lucia had explored virtual Mars and been thoroughly spoiled by the research and development team, Amelia found Miguel in her office, organizing her schedule for the following week. "Your daughter is extraordinary," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "She liked you," Miguel replied. "She doesn't warm up to people easily since her mother died." Amelia was quiet for a moment. "I lost my mother young too. Cancer. It changes you." "Yes," Miguel agreed softly. "It does." They looked at each other across the office, and for a moment, Miguel saw past the billionaire CEO to the woman beneath, a woman who understood loss and loneliness as intimately as he did. The moment was broken by Miguel's phone ringing. Lucia's babysitter for the evening had cancelled. "I'm sorry," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "I'll have to leave early. We have an important dinner with the Singapore investors tonight." "Bring her," Amelia said simply. "Bring Lucia to a business dinner?" "Amelia, these investors are expecting. They're expecting to meet with me, and they will. They can handle the presence of a well-behaved child." She smiled. "Besides, Lucia might enjoy the aquarium restaurant. The tables are surrounded by fish tanks." Miguel stared at her. "How did you know she loves fish?" "She told me while we were on Mars," Amelia said with a wink. "Apparently, she's torn between being an astronaut veterinarian or a marine biologist who specializes in sharks." That night, watching Lucia charm the stern-faced Singaporean investors with her knowledge of great white shark migration patterns while Amelia seamlessly closed a multi-million-dollar deal, Miguel realized how dramatically his life had changed in just a few months. And how dangerous it was becoming to his heart. The whispers grew louder as months passed. Miguel became known as Blackwood's Shadow, always at her side in meetings, on business trips, at charity galas. The fact that he was good at his job, anticipating her needs, streamlining her schedule, becoming indisp.